Everyone, welcome back to a new post today, and let's continue with the October current affairs for the UPSC examination. Let's begin with the very first thing, and that is about the social security agreement between India and Argentina. So India has signed many social security agreements with many countries, and this is to safeguard the professionals' rights and also the labor rights. So the social security agreement between India and Argentina, aims to safeguard the legal rights of professionals in each other's domains. The agreement is aimed to facilitate a risk-free international mobility of professionals between the two countries. Now, it ensures that the rights of professionals, not only professionals but also the workers in both the countries, are protected against the loss of social security benefits or contributions. And there is the need for the social security agreement between India and Argentina is because of the growing number of Indian professionals working in Argentina, and the Argentine nationals seeking employment in India necessitated this legal framework. And the next most important issue is regarding Moscow talks or Moscow format of talks at Kazan. And India participated in this Moscow format meeting in Afghanistan, in the Russian city of Kazan, and was represented by our very own ambassador Pavan Kapoor. And India expressed concern about the security situation in Afghanistan. So the Moscow format meeting includes the Taliban acting foreign minister as an invitee, along with the special envoys from the countries of Pakistan, Russia, India, China, Central Asian states, with Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE and the Turkey as a guest. The meeting commended Afghanistan's efforts against the ISIS, and Moscow format is one of the several dialogue platforms on Afghanistan which began before the Taliban takeover of Kabul. It was introduced in 2017 on the basis of a six-party mechanism for consultation among the special representatives of Russia, Afghanistan, China, Pakistan, Iran and India. And the key objective of this Moscow format talks of consultation is to facilitate the national reconciliation process in Afghanistan to establish peace. And the next most important thing is about the asteroid belt between Jupiter and Mars. So NASA's asteroid hunting spacecraft, called as OSIRIS REX or OSIRIS REX, I would say, short form for Origins of Spectral Interpretation, Resource Identification, Security Regolith Explorer, or OSIRIS, and this will drop a capsule containing the pristine asteroid material in the Utah Desert of United States of America. And it is currently heading. It aims to bring back to the Earth asteroid material. Asteroids are cosmic treasure troves containing a mix of raw material like metals, waters, and even also organic compounds. And the astro material brought back by this particular spacecraft of the NASA may provide scientists with the insights of knowing how the planets were exactly formed and what material were present in them in the early solar system, and even how life on Earth must have originated. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter is inhabited by thousands of space rocks, also called as asteroids, ranging from the size of that of a cirrus, that is the largest one, with a width of almost 800 kilometers, to a pint-sized stones of asteroid. And a part of the orbits come from them, some of them come with 34 million kilometers of the Sun. Closer even the Mercury gets, and such eccentric orbits sometimes bring them quite close to the Earth as well. And this is what happened with Hermes, a giant binary ryoid that zipped past the Earth, causing just less than twice the distance of the Moon, and this was a cause of concern among the scientists, especially the space scientists. So the next most important issue is about certain drugs like linezolid, clofamizine and cycloserine, which were in use along with rifampicin. So these drugs were in use because there was a news that there was shortage of these drugs, and these drugs are related with regard to TB treatment. So in September, there was a press release that there is no shortage of these drugs. These are anti-TB drugs, and the Indian government said that the news of shortage of these drugs is vague and ill-informed. Therefore, these are anti-TB drugs for treating especially drug-resistant TB. And the next most important issue is with regard to the border issue between, or an enclave you could call, which is called as the Nagorno-Karabakh issue between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Now the Nagorno-Karabakh is located within the international borders of Azerbaijan, and it is in the South Caucasus region between Eastern Europe and Western Asia, spanning southern part of the Caucasus Mountains, which roughly includes the modern day of Armenia, Azerbaijan and Georgia. Now the conflict between the Azeris and the Armenians go back to almost a century, when the Ottomans actually attacked the South Caucasus during the World War I with the help of the Azerbaijans, and they targeted the ethnic Armenians during this attack, and the conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia descended then into a full-blown war in 1920 and continues even till today. Azerbaijan and Armenia became part of the Soviet Republic soon after then, and Nagorno-Karabakh was made an autonomous region in Azerbaijan, but the population mostly consists of Armenian, and therefore it is being claimed by the Armenians on one hand, and also Azerbaijan. Internationally, it is recognized as the territory of Azerbaijan. And the Armed Forces Special Powers Act was imposed in 4 districts of Assam. They were called as the disturbed areas. Let me tell you, either the center or the state can designate areas as disturbed areas and can impose the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, which gives special powers to the security forces, like conducting operations, arresting anyone without any prior warrant, besides giving immunity from arrest, and also prosecution to the forces if they shoot anyone, and these are the immunities. So the Armed Forces Special Powers Act dates back to 1942 in the pre-British era, which was promulgated by the British to actually deal with the Quit India movement in India, and it is modelled on 4 ordinances: the Bengal Disturbed Area Special Powers of Armed Forces Ordinance, the Assam Disturbed Area Special Powers of Armed Forces Ordinance, and the East Bengal Disturbed Area Special Powers of Armed Forces Ordinance, and the United Province Disturbed Area Special Powers of Armed Forces Ordinance. And it was invoked by the Indian government to deal with any internal security issue in the year 1949, which emerged after the partition of India. Let me tell you, this act has its origin in Article 355 of the Indian Constitution, which empowers the central government to protect every state from internal disturbance. And the Armed Forces Special Powers Act of Assam and Manipur of 1958 came about. This act empowered only the governors of the state and administrators of the union territories to declare areas in the concerned state or the union territory as disturbed. And the reason for conferring this power was that to keep in view the duty of the Union under Article 355 of the Indian Constitution to protect every state against the internal disturbance, and it is considered desirable that the central government should also have the power to declare an area as disturbed to enable it to send the armed forces to exercise special powers. The territorial scope of the Act expanded then to 7 states apart from Assam and Manipur to include Meghalaya, Nagaland, Tripura, Arunachal Pradesh and Mizoram, and in addition the words Assam Armed Forces Assam and Manipur Special Powers Act was substituted finally to Armed Forces Special Powers Act of 1958 and gets its present acronym. So the other most important news is with regard to bedaquiline, and faced with global calls not to have its evergreening of its patent on bedaquiline, the tuberculosis first-line drug, the healthcare major Johnson & Johnson now will not enforce its patents which it owns for the drug called as Serturo and bedaquiline, which is actually bedaquiline used in treatment of multi-drug resistant tuberculosis in 134 low and middle income countries. The significance of bedaquiline is that it is the first drug for TB to be globally approved in 40 years, and it's very less toxic and more effective than the traditional TB treatments that are available. And the next most important issues with regard to Egypt celebrates the October Victory 1973, which is of 50 years now. 50 years after the Arab-Israeli War, Israel continues to occupy the West Bank, East Jerusalem and also Gaza. The October War of 1973 Arab-Israeli War lasted for 3 weeks, but it shook the world economy and also culminated in something called as the Camp David Accords. That saw Egypt become the first Arab country to establish diplomatic ties with Israel. Israel. Now, the war known to the Israelis as the Yom Kippur War and to the Arabs as the October War started when Egypt and Syria launched two-front attack on Israel to regain the territories lost in 1967 Six-Day War, when Israel captured the Sinai Peninsula in Egypt and also the Syrians' Golan Heights. Israel then sieged large parts of territories of historic Palestine, including the West Bank, the East Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip in 1967. The defeat of the Arabs and the Palestinians is also known as Naksa, meaning a setback or a defeat. Egypt regained control of the Sinai, but Syrian Golan Heights remain occupied by the Israel. The aftermath of the war contributed to shifting of political dynamics between the Arab countries and also the United States. So what exactly is Camp David Accords? Now, the former US President Jimmy Carter brokered a series of peace talks between the then Egypt and also Israeli Prime Minister. The secret discussions took place in one place in Washington called as Camp David, which is a country retreat for the US President near Washington, and it spanned for over 13 days. The accord laid down the condition for the Egypt-Israeli peace treaty and also the framework for the Israeli-Palestinian peace using the Resolution 242 and called for withdrawal of Israel from the territories occupied during the Six-Day War in 1967, that is the Sinai Peninsula, the East Jerusalem and Gaza. Israel pulled out of its forces and civilians in Sinai in exchange of the diplomatic ties with Egypt and access to Suez Canal after the Camp David Accords of 1978. While Israel and Egypt signed a peace treaty in 1979, the framework actually never materialized. Then Egypt was expelled from the Arab League and all the Arab countries broke their diplomatic ties with Cairo following the normalization of Egypt and Israeli ties. Egypt was accused of disregarding the Palestinian cause, but 50 years or more the Arab countries are eager to establish ties with Israel, relegating to the Palestinian issue that to keep it aside. And Jordan then followed Egypt in signing a peace treaty with Israel in 1994, while several other countries including UAE recognized Israel as a part of the so-called Abraham Accords very recently in 2020. And the next one is about Bihar conducting a caste survey. So we know that Bihar has released the data of the caste survey, and it says that OBCs add up to 63% of the 13 crore Bihari population, making it the largest caste group in the state. The survey shows that EBCs, economic backward classes, with 112 castes comprise the largest chunk of the population in the state, that is 36.01%, shared with 29 castes and 27.12%. The OBCs are the second largest contingent in the population. The Yadavs with 14% share is the dominant caste in the OBC group. The scheduled caste pegged at 19.65%, while the number of the general unreserved population is 52% of the population. And what about the caste survey in general? So caste-wise census enumeration was done in the British period in 1881, and it continued only till the 1931 census. After that, we do not have the caste data. We have the data only for SCs and STs. Independent India's government abandoned the full caste enumeration on the apprehension that it would only strengthen the caste divisions and perpetuate the caste system. However, the caste system has flourished and persisted in independent India even without the caste census as well. And the Backward Classes Commission, BP Mandal, submitted its report to the President of India in 1980. The Mandal Commission report said that the OBCs constitute 52% of the Indian population. Article 15.4 Clause 4 of the Constitution enables the state to make special provisions for the advancement of socially and educationally backward classes. This is what the OBCs are called in the Constitution. There is no word of OBC or backward classes in the Constitution. They are called as socially and educationally backward classes under Article 15.4 of the Indian Constitution. While the share of the OBCs was estimated 52%, only 27% of the reservation is given to the OBCs in all the government services, technical and professional, as well as the institutions as recommended by the Mandal Commission, in order to keep the overall reservation of the SC, STs, OBCs below the 50% ceiling that was set by the Supreme Court. The VP Singh government then implemented the 27% OBC reservation from 1990, and the court upheld it in Indira Saune versus Union of India case in 1992, saying that identification of a group or collectively by any criteria other than a caste, such as occupation, come social, come educational, come economic criteria, ending in a caste may not be invalid. And this cleared the way for the OBC reservation in public employment. The next most important issue is with regard to Astra. Now, Indian Air Force has placed 2 contracts with the Bharat Dynamic Limited in the indigenous Astra Beyond Visual Range air-to-air missile, and the first batch is set to be inducted. Astra is now been fully integrated in the Sukhoi Mk-130 aircraft of the Indian Air Force, and it was test fired from the light combat aircraft as well. It is a state-of-the-art beyond visual range air-to-air missile with a range of over 100 km, designed to engage and destroy highly maneuverable supersonic aerial targets. It is designed and developed by the Defense Research and Development Organization, Research Center Imarat, and other DRDO laboratories as well. And the Nobel Prize for Medicine or Physiology went to Catalin Carrico and Drew Weissman. Now, this was for the discovery regarding the nucleotide-based modifications that enable development of the effective mRNA vaccines of COVID-19. The discoveries led by 2 laureates was critical for developing the mRNA vaccines against the COVID-19 during the pandemic. Thought to be groundbreaking, they have fundamentally changed the understanding of how the mRNA interacts with our immune system. The laureates also contributed to an unprecedented rate of vaccine development during one of the greatest threats to humankind, that is the COVID-19. And next most important issues with regard to State of India's births report was released in 2023. It was the first of its kind collaborative effort of 13 government and non-governmental organizations, including the Bombay Natural History Society, Wildlife Institution of India, and Zoological Survey of India, the Wildlife Trust of India, Worldwide Fund for Nature in India, and this is about the first of its kind collaborative data with regard to the bird species. So, and the last but not the least one for today is about the R21 Matrix M malaria vaccine that was approved by WHO. So it is the second most important malaria vaccine recommended by WHO, developed by the University of Oxford and our very own Serum Institute of India. So this is the second malaria vaccine. The R21 vaccine is the second malaria vaccine recommended by WHO, following the AS01 vaccine, which was recommended and is the first malaria vaccine in 2021. Now, this has been pre-qualified as a malaria vaccine by WHO, which is going to be very effective in children which are infected by malaria, and also to avoid its infection as well. Both the vaccines are safe, and they are developed by University of Oxford and the Serum Institute of India, and most probably to be released soon in the market as well. So this is about the first part for October current affairs for the UPSC upcoming main preliminary examination. And don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and please do comment as well. And I shall see you tomorrow with the next part of October, and until then, it's very happy learning.